Ooh, good morning. This is like a third cut because a garbage truck came through, and I'm not good at editing, so I don't really want to edit much. Well, not that I'm not good at it, but I don't have a lot of time. My daughter just woke up, so like she's watching a YouTube video that I hope that I've kind of screened out and think that might be decently appropriate for her to watch. So I'm trying to do this as quick as possible in the mornings before she wakes up, but she's an early riser, so you know. Anyways, today I'm gonna go ahead and go through the cannabis adult use dispensary application in Illinois. Yeah, so we're gonna go over it. This is something that was always a pain point throughout the process of applying these past 2 years, was getting information, the information that was asked of us as applicants. Obtaining that information was difficult many times. Many times there's stuff that people just didn't want to talk about. There's established dispensaries out there right now that were helping social equity applicants, and when you because for their own prosperity and survival, they had to show, and they still have to show, that they're trying to help communities that have been affected by the war on drugs. So one way they did that was to try to incubate applicants, like to try to help them through the process, and that was great. And I'm not gonna name any names, but we were associated with one too, and I've spoken to different individuals in different organizations throughout this process to try to get help and also an understanding of the industry, along with my own research through just regular Google searches, podcasts, books, all that stuff. But one thing that became very clear early on in these incubating processes, and after I set up with the group of individuals that became the Hall of Flame, was a lot of established players in the industry did not want to talk about inventory levels. They didn't want to tell you how they dealt with expired cannabis. They didn't want to really talk about they didn't really want to talk about the the heart of a dispensary, what makes a dispensary run, how to make it run from within, like the real nuts and bolts. They didn't really want to give you that information, so it was difficult to go through that, because it's a young industry, a young legal industry. So you have friends that may have had an association with the street level of cannabis dealing. It's You could ask them, but at the end of the day, that's street, and it's different. The street is different. So to apply street inventory levels and budgets to a legal industry, it's apples and oranges. It's not gonna work too well. So I say that because I'm trying to say the transparency in the cannabis industry during an application process, where you're trying to get a license, there's no transparency. It's very difficult to get it. There is, not that there's not, but when the information you really need to know, that is very difficult to obtain unless you know somebody or have somebody on your team that is in the cannabis industry, the legal cannabis industry. All right, so with that said, here we go with the application that was released around October 2020, which was about 4 months after Illinois told its citizens, residents, that hey, we're gonna have legal cannabis in Illinois. So 4 months after that, they released the application, and then after the release of the application, they gave the applicants basically 2 months and a couple days to submit their completed competitive application for a cannabis dispensary license. All right. Photocopy of non-refundable application fee is the first exhibit. There's exhibits here. There's exhibits go to A through A through S or T. Yep, A through. We're talking about A through T. All right. So it's a lot of exhibits. Exhibit A, photocopy of non-refundable application fee. All right, application fee was $2,500 just to apply. Yeah, if you qualify as a social equity applicant. If you don't, it's $5,000. Okay. Exhibit B, principal officer application forms. All right. Well, those are basically background checks. So they want to fingerprint you, and they want to make sure that you're a legit individual that in the eyes of the state, a legit individual in the eyes of the state. I'm gonna stop using these because there's gonna be a lot of those if I start doing that. So a legit individual in the eyes of the state, which basically means your background is pretty clean. Table C, table of organization, ownership and control and business operating agreements. All right, so that's your incorporation document saying you're a business within the eyes of the state of Illinois, or any other state, right? And it's also showing, it's also the document basically saying who on your team does what, and any agreements y'all have made, percentages of ownership, addresses of owners. Basically, it's your constitution. It's your business's constitution. All right. That's just basic because it could get more complicated depending on what kind of business structure you choose, like a LLC, a corporation, uh, you know, partnership. There's all types of different ways you can set up your company. So yeah, so that's Exhibit C. So far, starting to see is getting a little bit weedy, right? um, Exhibit D, dispensing organization agent training and education. So that what that is basically how you gonna train your employees once you open up this dispensary. What kind of curriculum are you gonna have for your orientation? Are you gonna have for your employees? How are you gonna make sure your employees are versed in the rules and laws and ethics of the cannabis industry in Illinois? Additionally, how are you gonna train your employees to not do anything illegal? All right. So, and how are you gonna measure that throughout their careers or stints in your dispensary? For that, we got 13 out of 15 points. The Hall of Flame got 13 out of 15 points for that, in that application. And this is a competitive application process. 250 points for available with a 2-point tiebreaker. Exhibit E, purchaser education plan. So basically, how you gonna educate your customer?